Hello, welcome to Frank's School. Well, this is not exactly what I expected. I thought I would be on 91. I'd start the second semester of the fourth year, but I get stuck. I'm stuck for another few days. And today I'll try to explain what happened. I said I'm going to take a pause of about a week, and I did. In a sense, that was a vacation, but during that vacation, I learned some stuff or was reminded of some stuff. And you know how vacations don't always turn out the way you thought. I thought I just need to take a break before I start something new. Well, gradually I was realizing I've got unfinished business here. I'm going to call this, at least today and maybe 2 more days, the trades meet Wedge's paradigm. The trades has been my subject for a while here, and Wedge's paradigm, that's another playlist, and that's sort of a whole other matter. Anyway, what happened, as best I can explain it, is that I was thinking about this. I had taught that, this would be a guild approach: the blacksmith, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. And I had said that, a guild tends to look at it, it did in the old days. It wasn't a guild of all craftsmen. The guild tended to protect particular craftsmen. So the result of that would basically be influencing a city's government, a city's population, because you've got a group of blacksmiths. If you have a group of craftsmen, one of a kind, I suggested that you begin to get a potentially self-supporting cell or village. And I was thinking more about that. And it was, looking at this perspective with this village, I was reminded, I thought, now how far would you have to go before you could come to something like that as opposed to the cities? And I remembered, I couldn't come up with the knight's name, Sir Calidore. But I remembered a section in Spenser's Faerie Queene where a knight, as I say, I couldn't remember his name. It had been 40 years or more. But he got on his horse and chased the blatant beast. I'm reminded of all this stuff now, and I know where it is and all that. And there are 2 Spenserian stanzas where the chase is described, and I always liked it because he starts in the courts, goes past the cities, goes past the villages, goes past the farms, goes into the countryside, and eventually clear up into the shepherds' cottages where shepherds huddle from the cold with their sheep. So I'm reminded of a book called Flight from the City, which I've never actually read. I don't think I own a copy of that book either. But anyway, I was remembering that, and I thought, man, I wish I could find that. I could read it to you. As I say, I have found it. Here's Spenser's Faerie Queene, or the works of poems of Spenser. But the light isn't good, and I'd stumble over it, and you could find it. Anyway, at the end of that, there's a pastoral interlude. And then, now how I found it, because it was really bugging me. I wanted to find it. I remembered that I had quoted it, I thought, or at least referred to it, in something I'd written called Utopian Writers of the Renaissance. And I looked. I got this monster out. I have shown you this before. I think my knowledge, there are 2 copies of this in the world. I have one. The co-author, Michael Hernkane, has the other, and he's probably taking care of it. We could not get it published. We didn't try that hard. But anyway, in this called We're Alive, in this monster, there's a whole section called Utopia. It's almost like a book in itself, a collection of writings, my writings, basically. And in there, I had included a paper I'd written when I was at Harvard called Utopian Writers of the Renaissance. And I found it, and I was delighted to see I got a good grade on that paper, and a good comment, in spite of the fact that it was almost impossible to read. The ribbon on my typewriter was so bad, I wasn't, I couldn't afford to have other people type my work. But anyway, I read it with some difficulty, and sure enough, then I found it. Then I found it. And the other writers, incidentally, that I talked about besides Spencer were Montaigne, Rabelais, Moore, Spencer, and Bacon. Each one of them, Francis Bacon, each one of those in their own way described a little utopia in a way. And I actually thought it was good. I agreed with my comment, the comment that I got. And it left me thinking, gee, maybe it's worthy of somehow still trying to publish. I don't know. I'll have to see. But it has basically been forgotten. But anyway, I found it. And so there it was. And now why I've got these here is when I was at Harvard, in a sense, I was on Caldor's Chase every weekend. I worked 40 hours a week as a night watchman while I attended Harvard. And on Friday, after classes were over, I went out and hitchhiked back home to New Hampshire, past Concord, clear up into the woods near a school where my girlfriend lived. And so I made that Caldor's Chase in a way. Boy, it about killed me different times. But anyway, and then also in Portugal, 2 years ago, and Shirley and I, in a sense, did that. I went through Washington and Newark, and then Lisbon, the cities, and rented a car finally, and drove and clear up into Galicia until we were finally in the woods at an abandoned mill that belongs to Chaussee. And if you want to see that, I mean, it's in the course. I filmed this stuff. Well, anyway, back to what's going on here. The prospectus playlist has already got 11 videos in it. I want to finish it. The trades playlist has got 10 videos in it already. I want to finish it. But both of these would not be really finished until I deal with what happened in the last week or so. Well, going on, in the process of looking at this monster here, I saw that I had also included something I wrote in 1970, Catolé de Rocha, Brazil. Brazil is the way you say it in Portuguese. When I was in the Peace Corps in Catolé de Rocha, I had written an initial study for a craftsman colony and school. And I knew I had written it, sort of, but I just hadn't looked back very much. But this time I did. And I realized that back at that time, I was dreaming. I mean, when was that? 45 years ago, 44 years ago? And now I'm doing. And then back at that time, I made the study with the idea that there would be 16 initial colonizers, I guess you'd call it, eight men and 8 women, you know, I circulated it. I couldn't really interest anybody, but in the flush of that was back in the days of the hippies and communes and things, and I was not so interested in the communes because I didn't think they were that practical, and I didn't think they had a future. But anyway, it sort of fit into the spirit of the time, if you know anything about that time. But I was unable to interest anybody else in it, so you know, I sort of forgot it. I just went on doing my own thing, trying to get back to this farm, which I finally did. But now, here, I find myself, what I'm doing, like this afternoon, I'm making it. I'm making a craftsman's village. Again, I still haven't interested really anybody. I'm doing it myself, really, but I'm making all these little craftsman stations, which you can find about it if you look at the trades. No, prospectus. Whatever, they're related. And I came to the number 16. And then what I did was, I thought, well, what if you took this out to 16? Well, of course, 16 blacksmiths, you'd have to have a pretty darn big city for them. But if you took this out to 16, and I even looked, what were the 16? that I came up with at that time. And I looked, I think there's some flaws to it. But I began to think a little bit about that. And the result of my thinking, I will go on to try to explain in point 3 and probably point 4. We'll see how it goes. I really don't know how I'm going to go about this, but I do know that I don't want to be stuck on this too long. All right. There we go. Not what I expected for today, but you've got a context for what's coming tomorrow.